Shortly after 7 o'clock on the evening of November the 8th, 1974, Carol DaRonch parked her car in this parking lot at the Fashion Mall. Shortly after began what she now calls her personal nightmare. This is her story as she related it to police. Around 7 p.m., she parked her car in the west lot near Sears, went inside. While in the mall, Miss DaRonch met some cousins, stopped to talk for a while, then walked back towards Sears. She was approached by a man near Walden's bookstore. This man identified himself as Officer Roslin, who said he had caught a suspect breaking into her car. He asked Miss DaRonch to come out to the car to check it. For the next few minutes, they walked a winding route through the mall, outside and across the street to a laundromat. The man told Miss DaRonch this was the Murray Police Substation, but the suspect had been moved. He said they would have to go down to the main Murray Police Department to sign a complaint. DaRonch entered the abductor's car. While on the way to the police station, she asked for identification and was shown a badge. The abductor at this point drove to and pulled into the back parking lot of McMillan Elementary School. The man slapped handcuffs on her right wrist. DaRonch struggled. The man pulled a pistol. She jumped out of the car. The man jumped out, waving what looked like a crowbar. She broke loose, ran to the street, flagged down a passing car, and an elderly couple drove DaRonch to the Murray Police Station. The search for her abductor began. The Bundy defense maintained throughout the trial that there were, quote, gaping errors, end quote, in the testimony of Carol DaRonch. The first in the question of identification.
And it was only a very, very short period of time when it became clear to her what was happening, that she had any reason to be afraid. And at that point, she was so fearful and frightened that she probably couldn't. Her senses weren't treating her very well at that point.
Then how could 9 months later she make a positive identification of Ted Bundy?
I don't know. I don't think it's possible. I think that's asking too much of people to do, and we have our theories as to how it happened and why she did make an identification, but I don't conclude that it was because she got a good look at her abductor and was able to remember him. I don't think that happened.
11 months later, however, at the trial, DaRonch picked out Bundy as her abductor. The second point concerns the abductor's car. During questioning in 1974, she described a white or light blue Volkswagen automobile with a large tear on the back seat. During the trial, she identified the picture of a brown Volkswagen. It was also established in the trial that Bundy's car did not have a tear on the back seat. The third point involves the badge shown her by the abductor. DaRonch, at different times, gave 4 different descriptions of this badge. The fourth point, police lineup, which included Ted Bundy, was held on September 5th, 1975. On 2 occasions, just 1 day before and 3 days prior to this lineup, Miss DaRonch saw pictures of Ted Bundy and testified later that she could have picked him out of the lineup based on those photographs. This is key, according to the defense, because Bundy was convicted of abducting Carol DaRonch based on her ability to pick him out of that police lineup. This conviction was recently upheld by the U.S. Supreme Court, and as far as the prosecutor, David Yoakum, is concerned, Bundy is the guilty party.
There's no doubt in my mind, and of course the court so found, that there was no reasonable doubt with regard to his guilt. He's an individual that it's probably impossible to describe. I've talked to a lot of psychiatrists and psychologists that studied him while he was at the state prison, even before he was sentenced to the prison, and read all their reports. I've probably read everything that anyone's ever said about Ted, and I think he's just an individual that is impossible to describe. What motivates him, what causes this, what I think is very deviant behavior, I don't think medical science will ever find out until he opens up his own mind and talks finally about what he has done and what he is responsible for.
I think he's innocent of the things he's accused of around here, and I don't know how he was able to put up with it as long as he did. And I visited him in Colorado and saw the jail there and so on. I don't know how he stayed there as long as he did either.
Ted Bundy was arrested in Salt Lake City August 16, 1975, and charged with possession of burglary tools and evading an officer. He was arrested by Sergeant Bob Hayward of the Utah State Patrol. 6 weeks before that, Salt Lake City detectives had, in their words, focused in on Bundy after King County authorities notified them Bundy was in Utah. Ted Bundy was convicted in October 1975 with kidnapping Carol DaRonch. It was almost 1 year after the incident occurred. Almost 1 year after the conviction, the Bundy defense located in a locked cabinet what they said was a suppressed report, a report filed by a detective, Jerry Thompson, in which he says, quote, "This is a poor witness, in the detective's opinion. I don't know if she could identify who abducted her." The defense claims this proves that police engineered the identification of Bundy, but Detective Thompson says he simply didn't think this report on Carol DaRonch was important, that he never intended to suppress that report. How is this? Well, what about Miss DaRonch now?
She doesn't talk about it much anymore. I'm sure it's still in the back of her mind, but I see her every now and then. I see her in the shopping centers and so forth in town and talk to her, and you can tell it's on her mind. I mean, when she runs into us guys, you can tell she wants to talk about it, but then she doesn't.
Murray, Utah is a suburb of Salt Lake City, where Miss DaRonch was abducted and where she still lives. Although the Murray police officers took me to her home, they didn't want us questioning her. They want the news media to let her get on with her life and forget the trauma of 1974. It was a moot point. Miss DaRonch was not at home. Ted Bundy's association with Salt Lake City hasn't ended by any stretch of the imagination. He still owes the state of Utah 15 years in the Carol DaRonch conviction, and prosecutor David Yoakum told me he intends to get those 15 years, even if Ted is found innocent of all other charges. I'm Ruth Walsh in Salt Lake City for News 4.